Right, the example on page 96, it's the first introduction to if and else. It's actually a pretty easy piece of code to look at. We've seen very similar to before, but it's just this thing here, this else statement. So I've cut it across into a file called odd and even, and I'll let Mike do his magic on the formatting of it, and we'll run that up and test that.
Okay, first is the same old problem. We've forgotten to do the include on the example of stdio.h for that printf statement. So we'll add that in, and here we don't even have a main loop, so we need to add a main in there for this to work, won't we?
I think the lecturer's starting to assume that you're learning the syntax and maybe leaving this out on purpose.
Okay, now we move that into F. We have a printf statement, we have a scanf statement, nothing difficult here. Moving on to the if statement, we've no braces, so we can only compute one statement. And what's happening here is it's going to detect. What's interesting here is it's going to detect.
Shutting down my mailbox, Mike.
It's going to detect. So we enter a number, we store the number into a num variable. A num variable is then has a division of 2 done, and it wants the remainder. And if there is no remainder, it must be an even number.
Must be an even number.
If there is a remainder, then
must be an odd number.
So what this is doing is this is actually saying is the result of this
even or odd
is equal to 0, you know, and if it is, then even number is printed. And the number is printed.
But the significance of this exercise is the fact that it's got that else statement at the end. Just talk me through that.
The else statement. So what it's going to do is, if this happens,
yeah,
then it will execute this statement. If this is true, it will execute this statement and then skip down here. It will not execute what's under this else statement. If this statement is false, then it will not execute this statement, but skip to this statement.
Do that.
And do that, yeah. We can also include else ifs, etc.
Yeah.
And we can also, if we were to use braces on this,
yeah,
then the braces would have to be placed for each block of code like so, and in the same with the else statements.
Really, that's the way that you should do it when you're learning, I think.
There was a time many years ago that was the only way that you could do it in C.
Yes.
Okay, so if we GCC-O, and we're going to call this odd even. Odd even dot C. Okay, we'll compile, let's run it. Type in a number.
101.
101 is an odd number. Let's try 100. It's an even number.
My word.
My word.
Okay, pretty straightforward piece of code there, so hopefully you all got the idea behind that, but that's the if and the else statement. If it's true, it's going to be executed. Otherwise, that's I'm not sure why they didn't use the word otherwise instead of else, actually, because they're pretty close to each other, aren't they?